Hello, boys and girls. My name is Fiercetooth, and today I'm going to be teaching you the bare bones basics of that Texan smarty pants, Engineer. Engineer is probably one of the most demanding classes in TF2, requiring you to take into account building placement, metal reserves, and the status of your team. But enough of that complicated stuff. Let's help you get onto your feet by going over the basics. For this video, I will be going over Engineer's stats, weapons, subclass, and counters. Keep in mind the stats of these weapons may change in the next 20 to 30 years when Valve decides to update our Texan Ranger. Before we hop into his stats, I would like to go over why I personally love Engineer. There's just something so satisfying about holding a point with your sentry as you hold off tons upon tons of enemies. Being that backup defense, if your team fails, does put pressure on you as a player, but pulling through gives you the biggest dopamine spike imaginable. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it and figure out how to play Engineer in 2020. Now, the first thing we are going to take a look at is Engineer's stats, and boy are there a lot. Okay, to start things off, Engineer has a total of 125 HP, which puts him at a disadvantage for frontline combat, which I will explain later on. Engineer's base speed is the same as Pyro's, meaning he is semi-fast, but combined with his health means he will most likely die in frontline combat. Engineer is meant for defense, and when on offense, he leaves much to be desired without the right equipment. So, you may be asking, if NG is not a frontliner, what is he expected to do? Well, Engineer is classified as a defense class, and that's what engineers do, they defend. As an engineer, you're given 4 buildings: the sentry, the dispenser, and the teleporters. To place down a building, it's quite simple. You switch to your building PDA, and then press down on the corresponding number key for your building, like this. To destroy a building, simply switch to your destruction PDA, and then select the building you want to destroy, as you can see right there. Buildings can get really complex real fast with where, how, and why to place them. So I'll just make a base point about them and move on to help you out a bit. First up is the sentry. The sentry is, well, a sentry gun, costing 130 metal to construct and firing at anything that seems like an enemy. It's pretty good for defense. It costs 200 metal to upgrade like the other buildings, but it's the perfect tool for racking up kills if used effectively. But you may be asking, Fiercetooth, why does my sentry keep getting destroyed? And why can't it hit that sniper halfway across the map? Well, that's because of placement and the range of your sentry gun. The big glowing area you see when you pick up your sentry gun, or when placing down a sentry gun, is its range. Enemies outside of this range will not, and I repeat, will not be targeted by the sentry gun, while enemies inside your range will. But why does the sentry gun keep getting destroyed by enemies? Well, that's because of placement. When placing down a sentry gun, it's best to stick to either high ground to have an advantage over enemies, or behind corners to surprise them. Keep in mind, these aren't the only tips for placement, but I would say go on your own to figure out the best place to put down a sentry, as for me, even as a veteran TF2 player, I'm still figuring out the best place to put them down. And to top it off, as your sentry gets upgraded, it gets better damage and HP. When upgraded to level 2, your sentry will now have 2 Gatling guns and more health, which increases its survivability. And when upgraded to level 3, your sentry gun will have an even bigger HP pool, and will have an added rocket launcher on top to deal more damage. Oh, I almost forgot to mention. To repair your buildings, simply just hit it with your wrench. It'll take some metal depending on how badly damaged your building is, so be mindful when repairing. Okay, second up is the dispenser. The dispenser is a little building that distributes ammo, metal, and health to nearby teammates. The dispenser is crucial to helping out your team and to help yourself, the engineer, to upgrade your buildings. Costing 100 metal to build and 200 to upgrade, it dispenses metal over time to you to help you upgrade your buildings and keep you from having to leave your nest. At level 1, it dispenses out supplies for you and your team. It doesn't have much health, and that's why placement for it is crucial as well. You don't want to bunch up your dispenser and sentry together unless you want a random demo man to blow you up into smithereens along with your building. So don't do that, idiot! Okay, listen, the best place for your dispenser is behind cover. It's also noteworthy to add that dispensers should not only be limited to you. Placing dispensers at choke points behind cover could be the decision that makes or breaks your team. With a supply of health and ammo, your team will be able to rely on your dispenser and protect it if your medic is dead or having trouble keeping up with the healing. When upgraded to level 2 and 3, your dispenser has more health and dispenses health, ammo, and metal faster than a regular one. Keeping your dispenser upgraded at choke points means your dispenser can patch up teammates quicker and take more of a beating. The last building we're going to be taking a look at is the teleporters. Consisting of an entrance and an exit, the teleporters are essential for moving from point A to point B. Teleporters are best placed somewhat far from the front lines. This is to ensure that if your choke point hold fails, your team can still have a chance to recover it. Costing 50 metal to construct each part, the teleporter takes time to recharge before it can teleport another person. It's nice to upgrade teleporters as they will recharge faster. When upgraded, your teleporters will also gain more health. Now let's take a look at Engineer's weapons. Starting out the game, you're going to be given 3 weapons and 2 items. For weapons, you're going to get a shotgun, a pistol, and a wrench, which are nothing really special. Well, except for the wrench. More on that later. As for your items, you'll be given a construction PDA and destruction PDA. We're also going to be taking a look at the Rescue Ranger, the Frontier Justice, the Wrangler, Gunslinger, and the Jag, which are weapons you will unlock later on as you play the game. Now, before we start analyzing the weapons, let's just get the stock shotgun and pistol out of the way. Nothing special with these two, a shotgun to shoot people at close range, and a pistol for medium range. Okay, now we get into the real stuff. The wrench is by far one of Engineer's most useful weapons. The wrench can be used to whack people, and can also be used to help your buildings. By hitting your buildings with your wrench, you can upgrade them faster versus not hitting it as seen here. The wrench can also be used to repair and upgrade buildings as well. Just make sure you have enough metal. The Rescue Ranger is a shotgun that shoots these weird battery things. It's a little bit weird trying to describe this weapon, but here's what you need to know. The Rescue Ranger, when pointed at a building, can let you pick it up from any distance at the cost of 100 metal. Also, the Rescue Ranger's projectiles, when fired at a damaged building, will repair it at a 4-to-1 ratio. In English, this means your building will be healed 4 HP at the cost of 1 metal. So the Rescue Ranger, in other words, will take metal from you in order to repair a building. The downside? Well, the Rescue Ranger can only hold the 4 shots in its clip and 16 in reserve. And to top it off, it's not a shotgun blast, so it's more of like a rifle. You have to be accurate with those shots. Another downside is you're also marked for death when holding a building, so be careful. The Frontier Justice gives you 2 guaranteed crits if your sentry gets a kill, and gives you 1 crit if your sentry gets an assist. Sadly, the Frontier Justice loses these crits if you are killed, so make sure to use them wisely. To top it off, The Frontier Justice also has other drawbacks, such as only being able to hold 4 shells in the chamber, and only 32 shots in reserve. For a gun like this, it's best to be strategic with it. You don't want to run into a crowd of enemies with your crits, because then you're just going to be obliterated and lose them all. It's best to keep these crits stored for when a spy decides to attack you, or when you're setting up a sentry and need to defend yourself. It's also best to pair it up with the Gunslinger, but I'll get more into that later. The Wrangler is one of Engineer's most important tools for defense, allowing you to take manual control of your sentry and give it a 66% resistance to all types of damage at the cost of your sentry being down for 3 seconds after switching off of it? 10 out of 10 deal. Really, 10 out of 10. The Wrangler is extremely useful for protecting your sentry from an uber push, stopping snipers, and shooting disguised spies. And did I mention that the Wrangler can also increase the range of your sentry gun? That's right, you can finally shoot that sniper halfway across the map. And with the added defense, it's perfect for picking off those crucial classes during pushes. Just think, you can now take out that medic and stop the uber push. The only problem is you have to be aiming at the person with your sentry to shoot them, but your sentry also gets a laser to help with that. Time and practice is all you need to be extremely effective with this. The Gunslinger answers the question of what's underneath Engineer's glove. The Gunslinger removes your main sentry and replaces it with a mini sentry, which at first seems like a bad trade-off to new players. But bear with me, with this new mini sentry, Engineer's potential is fully unleashed. The Gunslinger gives you an additional 25 HP, increases your sentry build speed by 150%, and your third punch in a row is always a guaranteed crit. But the cost of having all this is that you will have no random crits, and, well, your sentry is replaced by a mini sentry. Many will agree that the mini sentry is not a downside, and for good reason too. The mini sentry acts as a disposable sentry, since it only costs 100 metal to build, and constructs itself fairly quickly. A great tool to use if you're in the middle of a battle, as your mini sentry can get some quick kills in the distraction. And with that laid down, it leads me to the next part, Engineer Subclass. Engineer Subclass, aka the Gunslinger, is when you equip the Gunslinger and go into the offensive. This subclass is best for when you go on blue and want to play Engineer but not sit around all day doing nothing. Playing as a Gunslinger Engie is a pretty tough thing to do. You're still too weak to run headfirst into the battle, so it's best to stay around the middle of it until you can get some more experience in. As a Gunslinger Engie, you're up there in the front lines repairing your dispenser and putting up mini sentries to help defend what ground you're trying to take. In my personal opinion, the best way to play this class is kind of like a bootleg medic. Move dispensers up, place down a mini sentry near them to help keep them defended if you're killed. The added effort of your team and the mini sentry will help to keep your dispenser protected until you can respawn and go back to repair it. It's also noteworthy to add that the best way to play Gunslinger is to use a shotgun that deals some good damage. Remember when I talked about the Frontier Justice? The Frontier Justice is OP when combined with the Gunslinger, due to how quickly you can dispose of enemies with the mini sentry. Putting a random mini sentry in different spots or defending your dispenser means you can get a sneaky kill and rack up some crits to help push back the horde. While it may seem frustrating at first losing your crits at every possible moment, all it takes is persistence. Within no time, you'll be just like a certain uncle of mine. But you may be asking, Fiercetooth, how do I deal with those pesky spies to keep destroying my stuff? And what about that dumb demo man who keeps blowing up my sentries when I go to get metal? And what's this pyro doing with a hammer? Don't worry, little buddy. I have all the answers right here. As an engineer, your hard counters are Demoman and Spy, while your soft counter is Sniper. These classes can get very annoying when given the upper hand, but bear with me. Now you may be asking, who do you counter? Well, you, as an engineer, counter Scout and Pyro. Now before we get into anything, I'll break down how you can protect yourself from your counters such as Spy, Demoman, and Sniper. First up is Spy. Spy is arguably your biggest counter, as a Sapper, Disguise Kit, and Cloak are all meant to counter you. While a Spy is disguised, your sentry cannot target him, as it will see him as a teammate, meaning he will be able to freely sap your sentry. Spy's Cloak also means that he can just kind of sit there and wait until you're distracted or until you head off to get metal, giving him the perfect moment to sap your sentry. To make matters worse, Spies can also backstab you and then sap your sentry based on the direction it's facing. With all this in mind, you might be wondering, how could you ever in a blue moon defend yourself? Well, there's a multitude of ways, but I'm going to go over the best way. Yep, that's right. Keeping an eye out for teammates who are acting sus can definitely help you out when trying to find spies. And with no friendly fire, you can freely spy check and shoot your teammates to see if it deals any damage. Another thing you can do is to ask Pyros to spy check from time to time around your buildings. This is extremely useful, as many spies like to sneak around and relax near your buildings while waiting for you to get distracted. Spy checking is honestly the best advice I can give to finding spies, and with time, you will be able to smell a spy from a mile away. Another pesky class that you're going to have to deal with is Demoman. Because of his pills and stickies, he has the perfect advantage over you and your machines. Being able to lob them from afar means he can get out of your sentry's range and freely take advantage of it. But there is a way you can protect yourself. By having your sentry in corners, or by having it near your team, Demoman will have a harder time reaching your sentry. With him having to corner peek, his reaction speed might not be fast enough to beat your sentry. To top it off, if you have your team backing you up, Demoman might not have enough time to launch his stickies before he's killed. Another thing you can do is just shoot them. Yep, if you shoot Demoman stickies, you can destroy them and help out your sentry. Alright, with Spy and Demo out of the way, it's time to focus on Sniper. Best advice I can give? Just move your sentry away from a possible sniping position or just put it behind cover. Now, let's get into classes you can counter. As an engineer, you counter Pyro and Scout, mainly because your sentry can destroy them from a long range. And with Scout and Pyro's main damage coming from getting up close and personal, they usually die to sentry's armaments. And with that, you should now know the bare bones basics of engineering. So get out there, build a random sentry, and die horribly as you literally get targeted by everything. This is Fierce Tooth, and remember, always steal it. Or maybe no. Oh my god!
Who's the super cool cop? It always gets the bad guy. That's me. He brings a delicious assortment of sweet delight.